There is a small scene in one of the later arcs of Vinland Saga that to me perfectly encapsulates one of the core messages of the series. A pair of nameless Vikings have been captured and are about to be executed. Throughout the story, Vikings have been characterized as a scourge upon any land they venture to. Arrogant and dangerous people who pillage and kill for both worldly pleasures and their own amusement. While their comrades are being executed, these two Vikings bicker over how to gain entrance to Valhalla, essentially Viking heaven. A place where they can continue the same destructive and hedonistic lifestyle forever. One of the Vikings argues that it would be a dream come true. After all, everything they did in their lives was to achieve this honor. To him, being executed instead of dying in glorious combat would mean that they cannot enter this place once they die. Their entire lives would have been meaningless. The other Viking, however, argues that Valhalla doesn't sound all that enticing. He points out that an entry to Valhalla would only bring boredom. He questions, is it just me, or does that sound like the life we've already led? If the world's gonna stay the same, you'd eventually get tired of it. He thinks to himself, what if he had dedicated his life to a more selfless desire? For all of the fighting and fleeting joys he had during his life, none of it mattered. What good was the promise of Valhalla? This dream was just an excuse to fight for oneself at the expense of others. He didn't change the world, he didn't help anyone, and he didn't even have a change of heart until moments before his death. For as powerful as the Vikings were, they lacked the self-awareness to realize what they were doing was ultimately short-sighted and not conducive to leading a meaningful life. When rereading this part of the manga, the Vikings' belief in their exceptionalism reminded me of something. I was talking to someone not too long ago about how I'm not a fan of the term NPC. Not video game NPCs, no, a lot of them are actually funny as hell.
I'm being attacked by them! Stop! You violated the law!
I mean how the internet has co-opted the term NPC, referring to people who fit a few stereotypes and putting them into a box and dismissing them outright as sheep. Nothing special. Basically people who are the extras in the film that is your life. I have a habit of reading deeply into things. I recognize that this is a meme, and to most people it's just that. It's not a full-on condemnation of people that are too quote-unquote basic to them. Or is it? Seriously though, behind the veneer of jokes like this is at least an ounce of truth. And this reductive way of looking at other people is frankly dystopian to me. Are there people out there that maybe don't think for themselves when it comes to certain points of discussion? Could they maybe do a little more critical thinking? Definitely. But I think it's important to remember that this kind of thinking, if left unchecked, can quickly lead to tribalism and a heightened sense of self-importance. It's no surprise to me that quips like this are synonymous with the rise of main character syndrome. And I know it's not just me who has noticed the crazy amount of ego going around nowadays. Just look at our government, dog.
Donald Trump is finally tired of Elon Musk privately complains to a reporter that the world's richest man is clingy.
Some people just do not give a shit about anyone around them, and unfortunately this behavior is seen as brave or confident by the more egocentric. This is something that author of Vinland Saga, Makoto Yukimura, has highlighted and explored across his work. Tying all of this back to Vinland Saga, there's a line that Askeladd states early on in the series that is pretty crude but not wrong. It explains a lot of behavior in general. Every living human being is a slave to something. One way of interpreting that statement is that most every action a person takes is the result of their beliefs and adherence to some ideology. It can range from noble and altruistic to Unga Bunga Me Want War. Although Askeladd said this as a way to explain how he has a hold over people, namely Thorfinn, it's humbling to think about that statement and apply it to yourself. Every character and every real person is subservient to some idea or way of life, and 99% of the actions we take are informed by those set of beliefs. I'm no psychologist, but maybe main character syndrome can be caused by the belief that one's own ideology, and by extension their actions, are more righteous than those of other people. And what Vinland Saga does so well is it examines the main character syndrome of some of its characters and gives them a reality check. Take, for example, Olmar. This is one of my favorite characters. Olmar is the son of the owner of the farm and enjoys his family's riches. The slaves who tend to his father's farm and the work that goes into it is beneath him. Olmar doesn't care to sow wheat and feed the livestock. Instead, he sees himself as the one who will be different, the special one. Olmar is the kind of guy who would unironically call the people around him NPCs. He has grand delusions of fighting for glory and is just the worst. To prove that he is a man and capable of becoming a strong warrior in Canute's army, he attempts to take the life of Thorfinn and Einar, who in his eyes are defenseless slaves, mind you. But in the decisive moment, he can't follow through. This could have been the extent of his character, a one-off gag who sits atop an imaginary high horse. And this does continue for a little while longer. During this time, we learn of Olmar's brother, Thorgil. Thorgil is a warrior himself, serving as a soldier under Canute. At this point in Danish history, Thorgil is the definition of success. Not only does he come from a rich family, he is a respected soldier who has a penchant for combat. Here we can start putting the dots together and figure out why Olmar might feel entitled to a place in the army. Olmar is the scrawny younger brother who has yet to prove his worth in anything, and sees his brother as a goalpost that he must reach someday. That is the quickest way to earn respect and be seen by others the way he views himself. At least the way he views himself when he's sober. Problem is, Olmar is not Thorgil.
You're not that guy.
He never received the training that Thorgil received from Snake as a child. So for a bit, Olmar decides to delude and make a fool out of himself due to his own insecurities. This comes to a head when Olmar and his family seek an audience with the king. Olmar takes advantage of this opportunity to make his pitch at becoming a warrior. The blank expression on Canute's face in reaction to this request says everything without words. He sees through Olmar's facade immediately. He deals with so many self-aggrandizing men in his kingdom that see themselves as the next legendary war hero. This kid is nothing new to him, just another boy in way over his head. Nonetheless, Olmar is given one task to prove his skill with the sword: cut through a pig. It's pretty easy to laugh at Olmar here. I definitely felt some satisfaction seeing his tough guy facade crumble. But what happened to Olmar next really elevated the character from being very punchable to someone you actually want to see develop into a better person. Olmar is despondent after what happened. He is belittled for his incompetence and doesn't take this very well, getting into a street fight. And it's the same humiliation ritual as before. That is, until Thorgil gives him a Sigma male pep talk, and through dumb luck, he finally does it. He has become a man. And this horrifies him. Olmar's reaction here tells us that he really didn't want the warrior lifestyle. He chased a goal, because that's what the successful people he respects have done. They beat out the competition and with little care for the consequences. Here is where Olmar is starting to realize that maybe he was the NPC that could have done a little more thinking for himself. Olmar and his family return to the farm to prepare for war with the Danish army, as their actions have disrespected the king. After the initial wave of fighting and seeing further suffering, it truly solidifies Olmar's new way of thinking. What he wanted for himself was awful. This is how you gain success? Is this how you become a man? With his father unconscious and as the heir of the farm, Olmar solemnly tells his family to surrender. He's ashamed to admit it, but he is scared of death. Not just his own, but being surrounded by it. Olmar was wrong. He can't keep hanging on to this idea that a life built on the suffering of others is worth it. His life does not have more value than anyone else's. His brother tries to convince him that this is what he wanted and that this is a good thing. This is what makes him special, a cut above the rest. But Olmar doubles down. He was wrong for starting this in the first place, and he was selfish. His brother tries to convince him that this war was preordained, that this would have happened regardless of whether Olmar killed that man or he didn't. That's just the way the world goes. What matters is that Olmar protected his pride, since as Thorgil says, honor is more important than life. Again, honor is more important than life. The honor he refers to is Olmar's pride as a warrior, his belief that he is destined for greatness. But Olmar recognizes now, after the damage has been done, that this belief was conceded. He makes himself clear. What he did wasn't an act of courage. He wasn't protecting something as noble as his honor. He was a fool who deserved to be mocked. If he just had the self-awareness to realize the person he was, he would have avoided this altogether. He says he can't become like Thorgil. There's a lot of discourse about how Vinland Saga is a critique on toxic masculinity, and that is definitely a take I agree with, but I think its message is all-encompassing, and it extends beyond a singular gender. It can be easy to believe that everyone around you doesn't know better. People are just doing the same thing day after day, believing in the same trivial things. But you know the higher path. This mindset is poisonous. Wanting a better life, a more meaningful life, for yourself isn't bad on its own. But thinking that you are entitled to it above everyone else is. The longer it invades your way of thinking, the more damage it'll do. The beauty of Olmar's arc, and really Vinland Saga as a series, is that it asks a question of its characters and the audience. Are you really as important as you think you are? To think your life has more value than anyone else's? This is a message that I think all of us can remind ourselves of. I could further wax poetic about my thoughts on this arc and this series as a whole, but I think I'll leave it at that for this video. At the time of this video's release, it's likely that the Vinland Saga manga has come to a close. This has been one of the most thoughtful manga and anime series I have seen yet. It was challenging writing this script, but I'm glad that I was able to verbalize how I feel about certain themes of its story. A few updates regarding the channel. Some people have reached out to me and asked how they can support the channel, so I figured now would be a good time to launch memberships. For just $1 a month, you will be a member and your name will be featured in the credits of my videos, along with gaining access to a few other perks. For an additional $1, you'll also have access to watch my videos 24 hours before they're publicly accessible. At the time of recording this, I'm still early in the production for the Death Stranding 2 video, but writing down all of the ideas I have for it has been a ton of fun. Can't wait to show you all what I've been cooking. Anyways, enough yapping, that's all. Keep on keeping on.